Hey everyone! Now we are going to talk about the social diversity, dignity and freedom that takes place in terms of the outcomes of the democracy. That is chapter number 7 of class 10 civics. Okay, so let's talk about the social diversity thing first, and then dignity and freedom we will go on that. Okay, let's go. So accommodation of social diversity. As we can see here, ability to handle social differences, division and conflicts in a definite plus point of democratic regime. So the democratic regime have a plus point, that is that they are able to handle the differences, the divisions and conflicts in a very efficient manner in comparison to any other form of a country or government. So democracy should produce a harmonious social life. The thing is, the ability to handle these social differences, divisions, conflicts is thus a definite plus for any democratic regime that we see. So India is a vast and a diversified nation. So it has harborous various cultures, traditions, religions, castes, languages, races and ethnic groups. The conflict among the different community of people can never be removed. However, they can be accommodated. So we can certainly learn to accept that, we can certainly learn to respect differences, and we can also evolve mechanisms to negotiate the differences. So democracy, as we can see, is the best suited to produce this outcome. If we have to lead to the topic of like social diversity, democracy plays a very important role. Democracy is very important in this, as it produces this outcome very nicely. If we talk about, as taking an example of India, which has a large diversified country with various different cultures, languages, religion, caste, or races, or have a large number of ethnic groups as well. So the conflicts is about to happen. They have to, it is quite natural for them. However, the thing is, India is able to manage these differences. They are able to accommodate the social diversity of people, and can be differences can never be removed, but they can be accommodated, right? So that's what we are dealing with in this accommodation of social diversity. We can certainly learn to respect these differences. We can certainly evolve our mechanism in order to handle these conflicts in a better, efficient way, differences in a better way. That's why we can say democracy is best suited to produce this outcome. Democracy is best suited to produce social diversity outcome. Okay. Moving ahead, we have negotiating the social differences. What happened? A democracy must fulfill two conditions to achieve it. That is, number one, social harmony, and negotiate the social differences. Take an example of Sri Lanka that we had, that rule by majority, where the majority and the minority work to ensure representation of a general way. But rule by majority should not be ruled by majority community. This is quite opposite of what we saw in Sri Lanka example, right? In power sharing, if we talk about chapter. So a democracy must fulfill what? Two conditions. That is, number one is social harmony. It should remain the social harmony within the country. And second is, they should know how to negotiate these social differences. However, this was not the case in Sri Lanka, if we talk about. It tells us to handle two cases, if we talk about the two conditions, if we think about it. That is, the rule by majority, where the majority and the minority have to work together. The majority and minority have to work together to ensure the representation in a general way, if we talk about. And this majority should not be ruled by a majority community, if we talk about it. Rule by majority should not be ruled by the majority community. As we saw in Sri Lanka, that the Sinhala community was in majority, so they were ruling. They were the major one who were making differences in the constitution, or were making changes which were affecting the life of Tamils, right? So, democracy should achieve two conditions: social harmony. People, they know how to negotiate the social differences, and these differences, in this majority and minority, should work together. They should work together so that they could ensure representation, and this majority should not be the only one who would be ruling the government, if we talk about. So that is how we can negotiate the social differences in a democratic form of government. Okay, moving ahead, we have two outcomes democracy can have on social division. The two different kind of effects a democratic politics can have on social division. Can you think of real examples? So if you can see as in here, that these differences, first is like, first one we can say that they are falling apart. Because they are leading to like a civil war, or like they are fighting with each other. Differences or different communities are fighting with each other, and this leading to partition, or we can say a fight or civil war, or like a violence kind of a situation that even we saw in Sri Lanka, right? There was a civil war happening because of difference of opinions, differences that were, and the people were not accommodating it. The Sinhala communities were in majority, and they were totally neglecting the demands of the Tamils. They were like a kind of oppressing it, and they were trying to suppress it with their majority by maintaining their supremacy. This we can see is example of Sri Lanka. Okay. And here we have Belgium. We saw how the government accommodated the differences. They were totally different. French and Dutch were having a lot of differences of opinions, differences in terms of culture, language, and everything. However, what they did several measurements, or they take several measures in such a way that they were able to accommodate these differences, and they were able to maintain social harmony within their community by like maintaining community governments, giving representation to both the communities equally in every sort of a way. Even in the capital or in the country level, they try to accommodate those differences in such a way so that both the communities would be satisfied in one way or another. So the two outcomes that we see is the Sri Lanka, that we can have like civil war kind of a thing, violence. Okay. But in Belgium, as we saw, like social harmony was maintained, peace. That's why we can see that Belgium is also like European Unions. It was basically the headquarters, Brussels, right? So that's why only Brussels was considered as the headquarters of EU, if we talk about it. So they were able to maintain social harmony, peace, and everything in Belgium, and were able to resolve the issue. However, this was not the case in Sri Lanka. These are the two examples as we think about it with these images. Okay, moving ahead. Okay, so now we have dignity and freedom of a citizen. The thing is, democracy strengthens the claims of the disadvantaged and discriminated groups for equal status and equal opportunities. What it does, it strengthens the claims of disadvantaged and discriminated groups for what? For equal status and providing equal opportunities. As we can see that our leaders today, hey lady, that's my seat. This is moral courage, and she's sitting. So we can see through this example as well that Rosa Parks, you must remember her in the previous chapter we have studied. That is, Rosa Parks fought for equality of African Americans by not letting, she refused to give her seat for the white men, if we talk about it. We read about this story in the bus story that we read before, right? About Rosa Parks. So she fought for equality in African Americans in America. And she played a very important, crucial role in this maintaining for equality of the African Americans, or even in that civil war movement as well. Okay. So that's how we can say that democracy, what it provides opportunity for the disadvantaged and discriminated groups for asking for equality, for opportunities. Let's take an example. Other examples could be that women movement that we often see, where the inequality is still existing. But the thing is, there is recognition that the equality is what we need in a democracy. We know that we need equality, and it is being recognized as well. So sooner or later, the demands of the people are getting accepted because of that also. And if you think about the caste inequalities, so we often face gender inequality in our country, or caste inequality at times. Okay. So the movement by there were several social reform movements that were taking place in in India, by caste groups would be recognized as as valid in democracy, and dictatorship would not allow it. So that's why we can think about it. Democracy have its benefits as well. It provides dignity and freedom for the citizens. It strengthens the claims of disadvantaged and discriminated groups by providing them equal status and equal opportunities to fight for their own rights, demanding their own rights. If they wanted to fight against gender inequality, caste inequality, they can. They have the opportunity, and their demands will be recognized in the future as well. They are valid. They can raise their demands in that way. So that's how we can say that democracy, however it leads to economic inequality and it leads to a huge gap between the rich and the poor, still it is able to handle the accommodate the social differences. It is able to provide dignity and freedom of its citizens, and are able to recognize them, and that's how we can say democracy is a better form of a government, whether it is in terms of principles at least. Okay. So now let's have a look on the questions that we have so far. So question number 1, how does democracy produce an accountable, responsive and legitimate government? The thing is that the people have a right to choose their rulers. What? People have right to choose their rulers and have control over them. And whenever possible and necessary, they should participate in decision making on issues that affect them. They are able to participate in, people are able to participate in decision making process. Right? So democracy produces a government which is accountable to the citizens. As we have talked before as well, they are accountable. The government is accountable. Number 4, if we talk about it, is responsive and legitimate as well. And how they are able to do it? It is because that democracy is based on the ideas of liberation and negotiation. Democracy based on ideas of liberation and negotiation, right? And basically the decision making is based on the norms and the procedures. Decision making that we have talked before, decision making is based upon norms and procedures and its transparency. Okay. So we can say that the people have right to choose for whoever they want to have as their representatives and can have a full control over them. And if they don't like it, they can just don't give vote to them and can remove them from power. They can participate in decision making process and can have a very important role in that. They are accountable and responsible and legitimate in such a way that democracy produces like a government which is accountable to the citizens. They have to be, these representatives, these government have to be accountable to their citizens. Democracy, because it is based on the ideas of liberation and negotiation, it provides the freedom to the people, it provides dignity to the people in such a way that it provides liberation and negotiation. So we can say that it is responsive and legitimate as well. Accordingly to that, decision making is basically based on the norms and the procedures which are basically transparent. The people can have they can get the information whatever they want from the government about the government, and these procedures are transparent. They are have records about it, and when we can have a clear look about it. So that's how we can say that this is accountable, responsive and a legitimate form of a government. Democratic government is a accountable, responsible. It produces an accountable, responsive and a legitimate form of a government. Okay. The second question that we have is, what are the conditions under which the democracies accommodate the social diversities, if we talk about? So the conditions under which the democracy accommodate the social diversities, number 1, if we talk about it, is the democracy accommodate these social diversities when it is understood that democracy is not just the rule of single power, not just the rule of single majority. Okay. We cannot have one particular community as majority in a democracy, okay, or community in terms of community, religion, caste, anything, okay. That's how we get to know it, that cannot happen that the rule of single majority cannot exist. Number 2, the democracy is best suited to produce its outcome, best suited to produce its outcome. And that outcome could be, it could be like accommodating the social diversity, accommodating the social diversity, and then having dignity and freedom, providing dignity and freedom to its citizens, right? So, and also reducing inequalities, if we talk about. So they know how to produce the outcomes, basically, the outcomes that are required. So it is best suited to produce outcomes. Non-democratic regimes often, what they do, they often turn a blind eye to or they suppress the internal social differences that often happen. So ability to handle these social differences, divisions and conflict is thus are definite, if we talk about, is a plus point of democratic regime. So ability to handle what? Social differences. Social differences, we have divisions or conflicts, right? So this is how they are able to handle it. So it is not just about the rule of a single majority, they are able to like produce its outcome, that is accommodating a social diversity, dignity and freedom, reducing inequality, and they are able to handle the social differences, divisions and conflicts. And number third is, in a democracy, it is necessary to understand that democracy is not simply a rule by a majority opinion, not simply ruled by majority opinion. Maybe majority have to work with the minority as well, so that the government can function and represent the opinions of the common people. Majority often have to work with minority section people, so that they are able to have the opinions of the common people. Okay, so that's why we can say these are the conditions under which democracy accommodates the social diversities. Okay, so that's all was from in this chapter. We got to know about the social diversity, how democratic form of government are able to accommodate these diversities according, as well as we got to know about the dignity and freedom. They try to protect the dignity and the freedom of the individuals. So as if we talk about the in terms of social differences and everything, democracy is best suited option because it results are the best ones if we talk about in comparison to the authoritarian undemocratic form of government. So that's why we can say democracy is a better form of a government in comparison to its alternatives. As we have studied so far in the previous chapters as well, we got to know through this far that democracy is a better form of government in comparison to in any other form of a government. Okay. However, in terms of principles, it is different. In terms of practice, it quite be a little different as well. Still, we can say it about it. So, democracy is efficient as well if we talk about is that if it passes one test, it produces another test and people get some benefit from the democracy. They wanted to know more about it. Like we are trying to know more about democracy. That's why we can say that when we ask people about the way democracy functions, they will come up with more expectations. People have expectations from democracy, a democratic form of government. They wanted to reduce inequalities, they wanted to reduce poverty, eradicate poverty and have a better standard of living and better life. People want that. And they are expecting from democracy. This is itself a success of a democracy, that the people are, like the fact that the people are complaining in itself is a testimony to the success of democracy if we talk about it. It shows that the people have developed awareness. They have have trusted the way the democratic form of a government functions. And they are able, they have the ability to expect, to look critically as a power holder if we talk about, and about the highs and the lows if we have to think about it. A public expression of dissatisfaction is also with democracy shows the success of democracy. It projects, it transforms basically the people from the status of subject into that of a citizen, because they are caring about the way they want our form of a government. Okay, they want when a person is ignorant, we can say that democracy may or may not be working well. But since the people are expecting, they are having, they are thinking about themselves as the citizens of that particular country with them holding power, as they are giving votes to the representatives and everything. So most individuals today believe that the vote makes a difference, right? And in that way, the government is run, and to their and that way, the way they want, they can have a control over about it, and they even look for their self-interest as well. So that's why we can say democracy has shown how successful it is. However, there are certain faults in it as well, and the imperfections as well. However, we can say that democracy is a better form of government in comparison to any other form of government. Okay. So thank you so much for being with me at Study Room. We got to know a lot in this chapter. We will meet again with a quick revision of what we have studied so far in this chapter. Till then, bye bye.